Hello, third grade. This is part 14. We're almost done. Suddenly, the girl leapt into the air higher than any human being could possibly leap. Even more startling, Bella's hands and feet stuck to the roof of the cave, and her body started to change. Her skin looked as if it was filled with water. Dark spots rose to the surface on her hands and legs. Her eyes bugged out to disgusting proportions and migrated to the top of her head. Her shoes exploded off her feet, revealing long, green-webbed toes. Within minutes, she had transformed into the frog girl that had attacked the family and the principal. Like a streak of lightning, a long, slippery tongue shot out of her mouth and launched onto Sabrina's shovel, yanking it out of her hand. When Sabrina turned, she saw Natalie had already made her transformation into the hairy animal she truly was. Rumpelstiltskin is insane, Sabrina said. When he cracks a hole in the barrier, these tunnels will collapse and kill everyone in them. All the kids will die. Actually, the children are already outside, trying to figure out what happened to them. A new voice said. Mr. Sheepshank emerged from the shadows. Mr. Sheepshank, she cried. You have to get out of here. They're going to blow this place sky high. Duh, Sabrina, Toby the spider clicked. You're even dumber than you seem in class. Hush, Toby, the counselor said. He turned to Sabrina. They're not going to do anything of the sort. I'm going to do it. You're Rumpelstiltskin? Oh, I have many names, Sheepshank said, but the one I like best is Daddy. Sheepshank extended his arms. Natalie, Bella, and Toby rushed to stand by his side as the odd little man began to morph and bubble. But unlike the others, Sheepshank didn't get any bigger. In fact, he got smaller. When his transformation was complete, he was hardly 3 feet high. His head, back, and arms were covered in kinky brown hair, but his face and pointed ears were pink like a pig. He had a short, stubby tail, hoofed feet, and a couple of rows of sharp razor teeth. No fair, the little monster said sarcastically. You guessed my name. Someone told you. Really, child, I must agree with my son. You are not as bright as your record suggests. Well, at least I'm not some sick pervert who steals children, Sabrina shouted, hoping to distract the little man in his freak show for a while. I don't steal children, Sabrina, the little creature said, as if he were genuinely insulted. I care for them. These children have been treated with nothing but love and affection. I give them everything they ever wanted. Then what do you get out of it? Sabrina asked. Why, I get their love, and their joy, and their sadness, and their frustration, and their hope, and most of all, I get their anger, Rumpelstiltskin crackled. I get their feelings, child, every last delicious morsel of them. You don't understand, do you? Let me spell it out for you. I feed on their emotions. That's where you get your power, Sabrina said, as Mr. Sheepshank's advice about feelings came flooding back to her. Of course he would encourage her to express her anger. He was eating it. You're starting to get it. That's the reason I've always loved children. Their emotions are so raw and uncontrolled. When people get older, they've already found ways to control their feelings, but not children. Children are like emotional all-you-can-eat buffets. So where's a guy with taste like mine going to find work? Why, Fairy Point Landing Elementary, of course. And trust me, Sabrina, it has been a truly rewarding experience. For years, I've sat back and feasted on the fights and humiliations you kids pile on one another. The senseless bullying, the humiliating of being picked last for baseball, the endless teasing about someone's hair or clothes. When it comes to being mean, kids have cornered the market. Well, when the piper came to me with his plan to blow up the barrier from below, I hesitated. After all, I had a pretty good thing going here at school. And at night, well, I have these little rugrats to keep me fed. The three ever after children laughed at their father's teasing. But then I realized there's a great big world of anger, war, and pain for me to feast on out there. So I signed on. It wasn't easy, though. Piper used his magic music, and every night the children of the school came to dig out the tunnels. At first we tried to use all the kids, but the little ones are so weak, we had to make do with 5th and 6th graders. Unfortunately, there was another unforeseen problem. The next morning, those same kids, the ones who had supplied me with the most energy, were too sleepy to argue with one another. They went from a raging river of emotions to a dripping faucet overnight. The piper and I were just about to give up when you walked through the door. "What do I have to do with it?" Sabrina asked, doing her best to buy time until she came up with a plan. "Sabrina, you're like the Niagara Falls of anger. It just keeps pouring over the edges. Every time you lose your temper, it's like a 4-course meal with all the trimmings," Rumpelstiltskin said, as blue electricity cackled out of his fingertips. Once I tapped into it, I turned up the volume on you and could barely keep up with the energy. Rumpelstiltskin continued. "Truth be told, we probably didn't have to kill Grumpner or the janitor, but I could sense how outraged you would get, and it worked. Every little paranoia and prejudice was amplified by a million. Thanks to you, I finally have what it takes to blast a hole in the barrier. Once it's open, I'll be free, and the Sacred Hand will march across the world, destroying everyone who gets in the way." "So you're the Sacred Hand," Sabrina said, even now feeling the anger rise within her. "You took my parents. The Scarlet Hand isn't a person, child. It's a movement, an idea. It's bigger than all of us, and I'm just one spoke in a very big wheel." "Where's my son?" a man shouted. Rumpelstiltskin shrieked and moved to safety behind Natalie's hulking body, just as Principal Hamlin raced into the cave. He looked exhausted, beaten, and on the edge of madness. His shirt was covered in his own blood, and he limped painfully. In his hands were his bagpipes. "Tell me where my boy is, or I will play a song that will tear you apart," Hamlin raged as he charged the little man. Rumpelstiltskin cowered in the corner. "The boy got in the way," he said, gnashing his teeth at his much taller partner. "I warned you about keeping him under control." "Where is he?" Hamlin demanded. Toby pointed one of his long, spindly legs to the ceiling. High on the cave wall, away from the others, was a mound of webbing from which no head poked and no movement came at all. Hamlin fell to his knees and buried his head in his hands. "Bring him down, Toby," Rumpelstiltskin said. "Ah, Dad, he was almost ready to eat the spider," Kid whined. "Do it," Rumpelstiltskin demanded. Reluctantly, Toby scaled the wall and cut the web loose with his razor-sharp legs, and carried the boy gingerly to the ground. He set him down at Hamlin's feet and scurried back to his father. "He was causing too many distractions," Rumpelstiltskin explained. "He was jeopardizing our plan." Hamlin ignored the explanation as he tore the rest of the threads off his son. When the boy was finally free, Hamlin leaned down to listen for breathing. "He's gone," Hamlin cried as he set the boy down gently and climbed to his feet. He took his pipes and filled them with air. "And you are going to pay for it." Before he could blow a single note, Bella leaped across the room, shot out her sticky tongue, and wrapped it around the bagpipes. She yanked the instruments out of the piper's hands and into her mouth, swallowing it whole. "That's Daddy's little girl," Rumpelstiltskin cheered. Natalie rushed to a corner of the room and returned with a can. She dipped her hand inside it, and when she pulled it out, it was covered in red paint. "Should I lay the mark on the kid's body?" Hamlin shook with fury. "You're in your scarlet hand, killing innocents. This wasn't part of our plan, troll. I just wanted out of this town." "You never had the backbone to do what has to be done, Piper. Someone had to make the hard decisions, like killing my boy," Hamlin said. "I know your pain," Rumpelstiltskin said. "If I were to lose one of my children, I would be heartbroken too, but I would still put them in harm's way for the greater good." "These aren't your children," Sabrina shouted. "You took advantage of their real parents. You played on their fears and made them feel hopeless. Their real parents want them back." Toby looks confused. "Is that true, Father?" the Spider Boy clicked. "You said they abandoned me in a park." "They did, son." "He's lying," Sabrina cried. "I've talked to your parents, Toby. They've been searching for you since the day they gave you to this sicko. He played with their emotions and made them believe you'd be better off with him. You weren't found in any park. Rumpelstiltskin manipulated your mom and dad and then paid them $1 million for you. He bought you, Toby, for the same reason he bought Natalie and Bella, so he could feed on you." "She's lying, children," Rumpelstiltskin said. "People are always lying about me. They want to take you away from me. It's not fair, children. Something has to be done to stop these people who hate me." "We believe you, Father," Bella said, her face boiling with rage. "Can we kill them now?" said Natalie as she looked at Sabrina with murderous eyes. Sabrina knew that Rumpelstiltskin could control the anger in others. Look at these two girls. It was obvious to her that the little man had turned his power all the way up. Rumpelstiltskin grinned. How could Daddy resist his little Natalie? "Go have your fun." The monster stalked Hamlin, backing him into a corner. Sabrina wanted to rush to his side, but Toby blocked her path. The Pied Piper was about to die, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. "Without your pipes, you're nothing, Hamlin," Rumpelstiltskin said. "And now that the barrier has been reached, your usefulness has expired." The Piper reached into his pocket and pulled out something shiny. He looked down at it lovingly, then raised it to his lips and blew into it. A low, sorrowful note came out of Wendell's harmonica, and the ground began to shake. "I don't need my pipes," Hamlin shouted at his former partner. Suddenly, the floor cracked and a huge fissure opened. At first, nothing but steam belched out of it, but soon a flood of ants, worms, roaches, centipedes, and a million other creepy crawler things flew out of the hole and attacked Rumpelstiltskin and his children. The frog girl leaped onto the ceiling, but was immediately overcome by a swarm of flying cockroaches. Losing her balance, she fell painfully to the ground. Natalie was quickly overrun with centipedes that wiggled and raced along her body, biting her fiercely. The monster girl growled and whined, but soon fell to her knees, unable to fight. Toby scurried around the cave, spraying webs at the sea of maggots that poured over him. He shrieked and cried as he rushed around the room, but the tide of insects was too much for him, and he was engulfed. Rumpelstiltskin didn't fare much better. Leeches covered the little man, and he fell over in agony. "Mr. Hamlin, please, help me get to the roof," she said, grabbing her shovel. Mr. Hamlin blew into his harmonica again, and a rolling wave of spiders, worms, and roaches lifted Sabrina high off the ground to the ceiling. Granny was hanging closest, so Sabrina used her good arm to pull the cobwebs from the old woman's mouth and hands. "This is one time I'm glad you don't listen to my rules," said Granny. Sabrina smiled at her, used her shovel to cut the sack of threads from the wall. The wave of bugs expanded to hold the old woman up, and when she was free, she reached into her handbag and took out a pair of scissors. She put these into Sabrina's hands and then descended the flight of stairs the bugs created for her so she could easily step to the ground. Sabrina rode the tide of creepy crawlers to the next person, who happened to be Delphine. She yanked and pulled until the little girl was free, using the scissors to cut her off the wall. Delphine was in tears, but she threw her arms around her older sister and hugged her tightly. The hug hurt Sabrina's arms, but she bit her lip and let her sister continue. It was then that Sabrina noticed Rumpelstiltskin was emitting a blue energy that swirled around him. A fireball blasted out of his chest, sending a huge explosion ripping through the caves, incinerating the entire insect army. The wave of bugs that supported Sabrina and Delphine turned to ash, and the two girls tumbled to the ground, jarring Sabrina's broken arm and causing an agony that almost knocked her unconscious. Through the haze of pain, she saw that the blast had destroyed some of the cave's tunnel and set tons of rocks to the ground, blocking the only exit. Worse still, the blast had damaged the foundation of the cave, and large chunks had begun falling from the sky. "Look what you've done," Rumpelstiltskin said, as he lunged to the principal and knocked him down. In the struggle, Hamlin's harmonica slipped from his hand and slid across the cave floor, and was crushed by a falling boulder. While the two ever-afters fought, Granny and the girls, Granny said, "Girls, we have to find a way to get the others down." "I have an idea." She took Granny's scissors and shoved them in her pocket, then rushed over to the unconscious frog girl. She kneeled down, rubbing her hands over the beast's super sticky skin. Then she rubbed her sneakers until they were covered in glue as well. Then she rushed to the wall, pressed the hands against the stone, and slowly but effortlessly climbed the wall. Each step made a squishy sound. "Do be careful," Granny cried. "This is so punk rock," Sabrina shouted. When the little girl got to where Puck was trapped, she used the scissors to cut through the spider web. Soon Puck was free and as indignant as ever. He spouted wings and fluttered around the room. "Someone is going to pay for this," he shouted. Meanwhile, Delphine went to work on Snow White. As soon as the teacher was free, Puck carried her back to the ground, safely. Soon he was doing the same for Mayor Charming, and then the sheriff. Delphine crawled along the walls to the last of their group, Mr. Canis, but before she could even cut away a strand, she slipped and fell. Puck caught her just before she hit the ground. "I ran out of sticky stuff," Delphine said. In the meantime, Hamlin had picked up the gnashing Rumpelstiltskin and thrown him violently against the wall. The little man slumped to the ground and lay very still. The piper rushed back to cradle his son. Snow White followed and crouched beside him. "It's too late," Hamlin whispered. "No, it's not," the pretty teacher replied as she felt Wendell's wrist. "He's got a pulse." Snow White took the boy, laid him flat on his back, and tilted his head up. Then she took a deep breath and blew it down the boy's throat. Instantly, Wendell shuddered and coughed. He was alive. He had some cobwebs in his throat, the teacher said. He couldn't get any air. Hamlin stroked and kissed Wendell on the forehead. "Dad, I think I solved the mystery." Hamlin laughed and sobbed at the same time. "I know you did, son. You're a great detective. Thank you. Thank you for saving my son." She reached over and gave Snow White a huge kiss on the mouth. Charming was standing nearby and raised his eyebrows as Snow White blushed. Then he scowled. Rumpelstiltskin crawled to his feet. He looked at his fallen children, and a tear ran down his face. "It's over," Sabrina said. "Oh, it's far from over," Rumpelstiltskin said. "All I need to do is collect some more power, and there's someone in this room that could give me enough to blow this little town off the map." Sabrina had never been afraid of anything the way she was of this little man. He knew her anger, he feasted on it, and he had provided him with enough raw energy to destroy them all. But she wasn't going to let him play with her head any longer. "You can't do it," she said. "I'm not angry anymore." "True," the little man said. "I miss your rage. It was delicious. But I'm not talking about you, child. I'm talking about the wolf." Sabrina gazed up at the skinny old man trapped in his web prison. Even from this distance, she could see the fear in Mr. Canis's eyes. It was the first time she had seen the old man afraid of anything. It seemed to unsettle Charming as well, because the prince stepped in front of Rumpelstiltskin with his fists clenched. "We're trapped down here, you troll. If you pull that stupid trick of yours on the wolf, you'll let him out, and he'll kill all of us." "No, my friend, he'll save all of us. The wolf will bring the barrier down, freeing us from this prison, freeing himself from his own prison as well. Look at him, trapped inside Canis, parading around like he's human. He's just like us, except the barrier is his own body. It's disgusting. We're ever afters. We shouldn't be acting like humans. We should be ruling over them. The wolf will be thrilled to help. His rage will open the barrier, and the world will be ours for the taking." Sabrina watched Mr. Canis struggle, but the change was already coming in him. The webs ripped as the old man's body tripled in size. A hideous roar echoed over the crumbling walls, and the wolf was free. He fell to the ground, sending a shockwave through the floor as he landed on his feet. He looked around at the desperate group and licked his lips. "Guess who's back?" he snarled as he struck Charming, throwing him against the wall. The wolf sniffed the air. "What's for dinner? Something smells good." Puck's wings sprang from his back, and he stepped in front of the wolf. "What's this, an appetizer?" the beast asked. "Relda, you sure do put on a fancy party." "You know me, Wolf. You take another step or try to harm anyone here, and you will have to answer to me." The beast studied the boy for a long moment, and then a chuckle came through his throat. "Trickster," he said, sniffing the boy. "Love will be the end of you." Puck blushed. "I don't know what you're talking about." The wolf turned and eyed Sabrina. He chuckled and then turned his eyes back to the boy. "All right, hero, I'm going to make you famous," the wolf growled. The man spun around on his feet and immediately transformed into an elephant. He snatched the wolf up with his long trunk and smashed him against the wall. The wolf fell to the floor, stunned. "Fantastic!" Rumpelstiltskin cried out. The glimmer of the blue energy began to swirl around him. "Puck, stop!" Sabrina cried out, but Puck was still in movement. He transformed back from his true form and drew his wooden sword. He rammed it into the beast's belly, and the wolf winched. Puck couldn't know he was actually helping Rumpelstiltskin build on the wolf's rage. "Stay down, dog," the boy shouted, smacking the wolf in the top of the head with his sword. "Or there'll be no table scraps for you." The beast opened his big blue eyes and laughed. "You're a funny boy." He sprang to his feet so quickly that Puck nearly fell backwards. The boy's wings erupted from his back, and he flew into the air, hovering at the top of the cave. The wolf leaped high, grabbing at the boy with his claws, missing him by only inches. Puck laughed and swung the beast's paw with his sword. If it hurt, the wolf didn't seem to mind. His face was a combination of anger and amazement. It was horrifying to watch. Luckily, Puck seemed to be out of his reach, until the boy's wing clipped the ceiling and he fell to the ground. The beast lunged at the boy, grabbing him in his used claws and opening his jaws wide. His fangs glistened in the tunnel light. Suddenly, Delphine was standing in front of him. "Stop it right now," she demanded. The wolf turned to look at the little girl with sadistic amusement. "Don't worry, child," he said. "You'll get your turn to fight for your life. Delphine!" "Leave Puck alone," Delphine said, "and let me talk to Mr. Canis." The wolf snarled. "Mr. Canis is not real. There is only one me." "I know that's a lie," the little girl cried. If she was afraid, Sabrina couldn't see it. "Mr. Canis is real, because I said he is. He's part of my family, and I love him." Briefly, the wolf's face changed. For a flickering moment, Sabrina saw the steel blue eyes change to Mr. Canis's dull gray ones. The old man was inside, trying to control himself. "Delphine," the wolf said quietly, dropping Puck. Then a shudder ran through him, and any trace of their family friend was buried again. His disorientation gave Puck another opportunity to attack. The boy clung to his feet, picked up a large rock off the ground, and tossed it as hard as he could, beaming the beast on the head. "Hey, wolf, you ever hear of a game called dodgeball? Death is moments away from you, and you want to discuss a child's game?" the wolf laughed. Puck threw the boulder, and it hit Canis in the chest, knocking the air out of the big brute. "I don't want to talk about it," he shouted, bending over for another boulder. "I want to play it." With impossible speed, he tossed one heavy rock after another at the beast. "Puck, stop!" Sabrina shouted. The boy looked over at her. His face was red with excitement, but his eyes were full of confusion. I'm trying to save your life, Grimm," the boy said. "You're going to kill us all. You're making Rumpelstiltskin stronger." Wolf staggered to his feet. "No, child, you got it wrong. I'm going to kill all of you." "Take a look around you, Rover," Snow White said, stepping between Wolf and Sabrina. "Your little tantrum is helping to fuel your destruction." The wolf turned to face the beautiful teacher. She continued, "The angrier you get, the stronger the real enemy becomes." She pointed at Rumpelstiltskin, who was encircled in his blue energy. He seemed to be enjoying every second of the fight. The wolf turned to face the little creature, and immediately the blue glow around him expanded. "Are you up to it, little man?" the beast growled. "Fantastic! Your rage is unbelievable." "He's powering himself with your anger, and when he has enough, he's going to blow up this cave and bury everyone in it, including you," Granny chimed in. "You're signing your own death warrant," Hamlin added. He had managed to get Wendell to his feet, but the boy was dizzy and in obvious need of a doctor. "Keep going, people. Direct his anger at me." "You want anger?" the wolf said. "It's fantastic," the creature said. The wolf eyed Sabrina closely. He had an odd expression on his face, filled with disgust and disbelief. One that seemed to say, "Can you believe this guy?" If Sabrina hadn't been so terrified, she might have laughed, but she did recognize the opportunity. The wolf's attention was no longer on eating everyone in the room. He wanted a fight. Sabrina cocked an eyebrow at Wolf and said, "Sick 'em, boy." Wolf turned on Rumpelstiltskin and lunged forward, grabbing the little creature. As soon as they collided, both were enveloped in the blue energy. Sabrina's arm hurt so much she tried to prop it up with her knee. It brushed against a lump in her pocket. The little matchbook. Her eyes lit up and she pulled it out. Inside were the 2 matches. She removed one, wished she was outside, and struck the match. In the flames, you could see the outside of the school. Everywhere, dirty students milled around in confusion, having just broken free from the Piper's magic. Sabrina, where did you get those? Charming. We agreed we need to get everyone out of here. She tossed the match on the floor and the giant flame appeared. Mr. Hamlin, get Wendell out of here. Hamlin nodded, picked up his son, and stepped into the flame. Delphine and Granny rushed to Toby, and together they dragged the big spider by his legs through the portal. As they did, Sabrina heard the old woman ask Puck to help with the other Ever After children. He spun around on his heels and transformed into a gorilla, hoisting Bella and Natalie onto his back, then racing through the flames himself. Snow White and the sheriff helped the mayor to his feet, and together they raced to the portal. I'm supposed to rescue you. Maybe it's time we both started some new things, Snow White said as the three disappeared through the flames. Granny came back through the portal and waited for Sabrina. We can't leave him down here, as she watched Wolf and Rumpelstiltskin fighting. I believe Mr. Canis knows what he's doing. I won't go, but Granny grabbed her sweater and dragged her through the portal. In a flash, they were standing outside in the cold with 100 elementary school students who were staring at a gorilla carrying a big hairy girl and a frog monster. This is going to take a lot of forgetful dust, Delphine said under her breath.